did have a Zoom conference yesterday and everything. So, I mean, yeah, he asked or answered a couple of questions about that and things like that. So, Manny Diaz did say that he is hopeful and he does think that there will be a college football season in the fall, but obviously, we'll see how that looks. Not to keep reminding people that I'm from Michigan, but I am. But the governor of the state of Michigan has already said that, if there are professional sports, it will not be to full capacity. So if you're thinking of, the University of Michigan, it would be you and 112,000 your closest friends. That kind of thing's not going to happen. The Detroit Lions, that was a thing because I saw it on the Detroit Free Press. Because, of course, I'd like to keep up with the hometown. In terms of Miami, now you're talking about, okay, Miami travels to Michigan State or is supposed to travel to Michigan State this season. East Lansing is the neighboring city to the state capital of Lansing. So those are two separate cities, but it's right there next door. So if the governor from Lansing is saying that we're not going to have, or in the state of Michigan, they're not going to have full stadiums, for me, that tells me that I'm going to cancel whatever plans that I had to go to the Michigan State game because the capacity is going to be, I don't even know, halved maybe or things like that. So and it's a thing getting back to Manny Diaz in Miami, everybody's hopeful and things like that, but we'll see what actually happens with, just everything moving forward. There has been, maybe a little bit of small steps, as we're kind of flattening this curve and trying to get this whole coronavirus thing under control, where, maybe guys who are rehabbing from an injury are going to be able to start coming back for treatment soon and things like that, where, the restrictions are easing a little bit. So you get back to some kind of semblance of normalcy. But yeah, so he answered a couple of those questions and things like that. And, we'll just see what really happens. So yeah, the first person I'm not going to get an answer in terms of when things are going to restart in general, in a full scale sense, is going to be a college football coach, with all due respect. So, I mean, it is good to hear from Manny Diaz. It's good to hear that they have a plan. It's good to hear that they have a plan about recruiting, which I know that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But, we just take that as we can take that, and then we kind of move forward.
Yeah, the Power 5 conference commissioners met this week with Roger Goodell. The NFL typically knows what it's doing. They run a very successful business. They've got a blueprint. They're out ahead of their situation as much as possibly. It appears they certainly have a plan in place and have unveiled their schedule that's not compromised. And the Power 5 conferences wanted to learn from them. I think that's a very interesting move. And I think it's a very wise move to make, to learn from somebody else. Met with commissioner or with the vice president several weeks ago, and the college football playoff selection committee did. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see who kind of takes control of this situation. But I got to think that the conferences and their commissioners have a whole lot of pull as long as they're maintaining state guidelines and staying within those guidelines. And that's the tricky thing, but because they're all different. Manny Diaz did, as you mentioned, he's hopeful for football. He's also hopeful to bring in more football players via transfers. I think he addressed that as well.
You're always trying to improve the roster, so whether that's with a high school recruit, grad transfer, a transfer portal transfer, which technically grad transfers qualify, but you get what I'm saying. Through any means necessary or possible, you're trying to upgrade the roster at all times. And if there are guys in the transfer portal, then that's a thing that Miami is going to do. Obviously, he was in the transfer portal. He enrolled early at Florida in January. This whole coronavirus time. He was up there with them in part of their program, and he was, like I said, there's conflicting stories about why he went and did not choose Miami, but he, story goes. And this, I believe, was written on 247 Sports, maybe The Athletic, where actually, no. It was on the Miami Hurricane Sports website. Manny Diaz reached out, or when they had their first conversation, Isaiah Walker and he said, I'm trying to get your interest, like what's going on. And he said, yo, I'm trying to come home. I want to be a Hurricane. Great, cool, 4-star guy. If you look back at any of these videos from last recruiting cycle, you know what I think of Isaiah Walker Jr. I guess I'm going to have to go back and write a recruiting notebook now since he's coming in this class because he didn't come here. But no, he's a guy that we wanted, and he's an addition to the roster in a positive way. So, okay, we're going to take him. If Miami is pursuing other guys, like a Jared Williams from Houston, the right tackle, as a new addition to this roster to help upgrade the offensive line group and add depth and talent to there that can compete for a starting spot or rotation snaps, then you do that. The other thing, and I said this in no uncertain terms last week, I did not want this guy coming to Miami. Taulia Tagovailoa, the younger brother of Tua, committed to Maryland yesterday. And if you read what I wrote on State of the U, you know that I think that Taulia has a measure of talent. I think that he can play at the Power 5 level. I don't necessarily know if he would have started here at Miami, given the state of the U and the quarterback room and everything, because we already have 5 scholarship quarterbacks right now. And I just didn't necessarily see, from an allocation of resources standpoint, why we needed to spend another one on him. But that's my personal feeling. So if the coaching staff had a different feeling and thought, yeah, we're going to bring him in and as a transfer to, help upgrade. Look, we already got De'Aaron King this year. You know what I mean? It's not like we're averse to getting quarterbacks or anything. But yeah, we're always looking to upgrade the roster wherever we can, and then also lights a fire under the asses of the guys who are here. Because, if you want your spot, then you go earn your spot. And if your spot is not solidified, and okay, quote unquote, everybody earns their spot every year, but let's be real. Shaq Quarterman was starting as a senior last year. You know what I mean? I get you had to earn it, but there's some guys who are kind of grandfathered in. They've earned that spot. If you're not like a Shaq Quarterman, where it's a forgotten or an assumed thing based upon performance that you've demonstrated before, you're going to start, and we bring somebody else in for that slot, then you better bust your ass. Otherwise, this new guy who came in from somewhere else where, whatever the situation was, maybe he's a grad transfer, maybe he wasn't playing wherever he was, he's coming in with his hair on fire. He wants your job. So
how many of those guys exist on this team? How many of those guys are on the first team depth chart right now that basically are, the world would have to implode for them not to start? Good
question. At tight end, Brevin Jordan. I don't think that, you can make an argument for DeLon Scaife and Navon Donaldson on offensive line, not tied to a specific position, but the fact that they would start in pretty much any 5-man formation. Cameron Harris at running back. His is a little bit less strong just because he was the backup. And I would have him there, but he's to a different level than we'll say a Brevin Jordan. Like Brevin Jordan is your best tight end in America. Boom, set it and forget it. Gregory Rousseau, record holder. Boom, set it and forget it. Those kind of guys. I would say that, honestly. You could have competition at any of these other positions. But if I'm like, set it and forget it, there's absolutely no way that they're coming or they're not going to start. Yeah, Brevin Jordan and Gregory Rousseau. And then you get other guys who are maybe shades of gray on that same topic.